welcome back to Cody and Joey Reviews. I'm Joey.
And I'm Cody.
So today we're going to be reviewing Quentin Tarantino's newest film, The Hateful Eight.
Now to give some background here, I'm kind of a recent Tarantino fan. I haven't seen any of his movies until just recently, like maybe 5 years ago.
Okay.
But ever since I have become a huge fan of the man, I think more often than not his films are actually pretty spectacular. I mean, he's a quality director. Of course, he throws back a lot to grindhouse films, which is excellent for me. I love 70s grindhouse films, so Tarantino's right up in my alley. And how do you feel about Tarantino?
Yeah, I was introduced to Tarantino with the Kill Bill series. My dad showed them to me when I was younger, and I really liked them a lot. I noticed that they were a lot different than like other films that I've seen. I mean, he had like a really unique style to his films, and I feel like he's kind of created like his own genre, like a Tarantino film. I know that he's not going to be doing much more of these. Apparently, he's going to retire pretty soon. But I think I've seen most of the Tarantino films except for Death Proof and Reservoir Dogs. I'd say right now, like my favorite Tarantino movie as of now would be a tie between Inglourious Basterds and Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, definitely. I myself have seen every Tarantino directed film. Now, some of his movies that he's involved with, like Natural Born Killers and stuff like that, I haven't quite seen, but every single film that he's directed from Reservoir Dogs up to the movie that we're talking to today, I have seen. So far, my favorite one, my top 4 favorite by the man, would be Django Unchained, first and foremost. That movie's amazing, but we're not here to talk about that. Then it's sort of a tie between Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. It kind of flip-flops back and forth with me, which one I think is the best. And then Inglourious Basterds, of course, is number 4. Yeah. Just 4 tremendous films. So I guess we should get into our thoughts with The Hateful Eight.
So The Hateful Eight, so like people want to say that it's like his 9th film just because like Kill Bill was released in 2 parts. But this is his second Western film. I like preferred Django Unchained much more, and the reason was because like whenever we watched it, I was like waiting for the movie to be done, and like it really felt like a chore to go through it, and I think that the movie started off really slow. It took a while to build up into that Tarantino movie cliche kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, once you got there, it went a lot better. I don't think that I think that like the actors did a good job. I couldn't criticize their performances. I would say that maybe the script needed a little more work before it was shot.
Yeah, definitely. You bring up the pacing of this movie. I mean, one of the things that I love so much about Django Unchained, the movie moves like lightning from beginning to end. This movie, it's very laborious. This movie, it should be said, is 3 hours long, and easily you could trim about 30, maybe even an hour out of this movie. The first half, really, nothing really happens in it, and that's a real problem with me. It's just characters talking, which I have no problem with. That's what Tarantino does best.
Yes.
I mean, that's why I go to a Tarantino film. It's just that the dialogue in this movie, the words that the characters are saying, isn't keeping my interest. And actually, I'm not sure if you noticed, because we saw the movie together.
Right.
I actually, at one point, looked at my phone.
I saw that, yeah. I didn't know if you were texting someone.
to see how long this movie has been going on. And it was about halfway through the film. I was like, we're only halfway through here, and it's moving incredibly slow.
Right.
But as you say, once the middle of the movie hits, once the plot really kicks into gear, this movie is incredible from that point on.
I agree.
Just great suspense, great tension. The characters are interacting much better than they were in the first half. I don't exactly know why that is, though. I don't know why the first half doesn't feel as good as the second half, but definitely it feels kind of split down the middle, and that's the real disappointment that I have with Tarantino.
And it's interesting that you say that, like you checked your phone at that like 1 hour and 30-minute mark, because I know that like the film was released in 70mm, and I think like for those theaters that had the 70mm, he had like a like intermission in between, so you'd go take a break and come back. So maybe like the film was designed to be like that, where the first half was purposefully slower and it felt like its own movie. But I mean, I agree. Like I felt like, I mean, for all the other theaters that the film was released in, it didn't work for me in terms of the pacing. But you're right. It's like once you get to that second half, it's just the old school Tarantino, and it almost felt like a gruesome version of like the movie Clue, because we're trying to find out, okay, who poisoned the coffee, you know?
Yeah.
I thought this was kind of interesting. Like with The Martian, potatoes looked really good because you kept seeing them, and coffee looked really good in this movie, of course, until the poisoning part.
Oh, jeez, yeah. That was actually quite something. But
it was.
You talk about Clue being a potential reference here, I would actually the two ones that I know from this movie, because Tarantino, a lot of his films are references to other films, and it's sort of the best thing he does. He takes older films, picks what works from there, and then reforms them into his own thing. The two that I saw in this movie, he went back to his first film, Reservoir Dogs. There were 8 main characters in that movie, and there are 8 main characters in this movie that don't really get along. And the second one, actually a personal favorite of mine, in my top 5 favorite all-time favorite movies, and I think I mentioned this with They Live, that review that we did, but John Carpenter's The Thing, his 1982 film, was definitely the main inspiration for this movie. I mean, it's a Western, sure, it doesn't have any shape-shifting monsters in it like that movie does, but from Kurt Russell being the star, pseudo-star, I don't know. A potential spoiler alert, he kind of dies halfway through the movie because of the poison coffee.
But, like, for all the Tarantino movies, everybody dies.
Oh, yeah, well, definitely. More often than not, a lot of his characters die. But Kurt Russell being the main star, Ennio Morricone doing the score, especially considering the fact it's set during the winter and the harshest conditions, I was really drawn back to The Thing. And this movie plays on that. Of course, Kurt Russell and Sam Jackson have a back and forth that, Kurt Russell and Keith David had in The Thing. It's very similar. Basically, it ends almost the same way. I'm not going to spoil The Thing. You should go and watch it anyway. But very reminiscent. I actually like that, that inclusion, because it really gives this movie a sense of suspense once the plot really starts hitting forward. It just builds up tension. And I guess I will give the first half credit. It is build up. And a lot of Westerns are like that. I'm a huge Western fan. A lot of them are slow builds up to the climax.
Yeah.
I just feel like this movie could have easily have been shorter. Not sure if it's specific scenes I would want cut out, but certainly trim here and there for a shorter release.
Right. And I think with this film, I mean, it has the problem of living up to like the expectations of Django Unchained, because it's really easy to compare this film to Django, since they're both Westerns from Tarantino. So, like, I'm wondering if, like, this movie came out before Django, like, would we have, criticized, like, its runtime as much? I'm not sure. But I really did like the characters in the movie a lot. I did like how they were, like, compiled from, like, all Tarantino's films. Michael Madsen, Tim Roth, they all do really great jobs. I mean, Tim Roth was so funny in this movie, He was
actually a delight in this movie. But it made me question, was he supposed to be played by... His character, Tim, was he supposed to be played by Christoph Waltz? Because his hand movements, like, he does little things like this, and also the foreign accent. I know Christoph Waltz is German and Tim Roth is British, but still the foreign accent and everything. Just the whole movie, I was thinking, maybe this was written for Christoph Waltz, but maybe it wasn't available.
I could definitely see that being the case. And I really liked, the female lead in this movie. I forgot, like, which actress played her, but she did, like, a really good job. I mean, you could really, like, believe her. And, I mean, she was, like, a prisoner that was sentenced to be hung, I think.
Oh, definitely. You can get the crazy right off of her.
Yeah. And it kind of, like, built up throughout the movie, and then you kind of find out, kind of why the movie is the way it is and, like, why it's set up. And speaking of characters, Channing Tatum even did, like, a pretty good job. At first seeing him, it was kind of a little funny just because, like, we're not used to seeing him in this kind of movie.
Definitely. But, yeah, overall, not really Tarantino's best. I do feel, just like you said, the cast in this movie is great. Mm-hmm. There isn't a single person... Well, maybe I would have liked Christoph Waltz in the movie.
That would have been awesome.
Everyone does a great job. The story, it takes way too long to build up, but once it does build up, it is incredible. So I guess for that, I would give it 3 out of 5 stars. Not his best, but still it's pretty entertaining. It's got that Tarantino charm. It's got the Tarantino violence. It's got the Tarantino humor. Everything you really want from Tarantino. I just wish the movie were shorter.
I agree, and I'm going to give this the same score as you did, a 3 out of 5. I felt like the first half really took a little too long to build up, and they may have, they could have cut it. But once you get to that second half, you see how great, like, the casting was. You see how great the characters interact with each other, and it's just old school Tarantino, ultra violent, just crazy hardcore Tarantino. So
definitely, heads being blown off.
Yep, said.
Very crazy. All right, well, thank you for joining us with Cody and Joey Reviews.
And stay tuned.